All right, we're live. What's up, everybody? This is Pastor G with Forward Podcast. We are here at 30th and Martin Luther King at the tent, coming up on day 28 of 30 days on this corner, trying to provide not only an opportunity to love on our community, but also to listen to our community and to share services that can meet some needs of those who live in this area as well as other areas around the city. So today I have Sister Paula here, Paula Brooks, and she is someone that I've had the pleasure of meeting and talking to at various times and in various contexts. And it's always fruitful to have a conversation with her because she is such an informed resident of our community. I cannot say that about everyone. Now, everyone is not necessarily informed. And so I want you to hear from her. She's got a lot. My God, she's got a lot that we could talk about today. But if you don't mind, just tell people a little bit about you and what you're up to.
Thank you, Pastor G. I'm here today because the northwest side of Indianapolis, is undergoing a cleanup. And the cleanup is to clean vapors in the soil that are affecting the groundwater. Our water is safe. That's the first thing I want to get out there. The water is safe, but this cleanup it will impact the community in many ways. One way is the environment. We will eventually have cleaner soil and the cleaner water, but it also will affect the community in terms of the economic development of the area. And we have a lot of different organizations that's working at different ends to uplift the community. Right. But the basic, you have to have a clean environment. That's a must. So
let me ask a couple questions as you're getting into that, just to clarify for people. Has anything like this cleanup ever, or this assessment, has this ever happened before to your knowledge?
Not on this scale, no. Over in Martindale, Brightwood, they've been having a decade-long cleanup with lead in their soil. But this is different. This cleanup encompasses from Indiana Avenue to the south, 38th Street to the north, Meridian to the east, and west of White River. Wow. And what it is that back in the day, there were a lot of dry cleaners, car repair shops, gas stations, paint stores, all kinds of and even bigger factories, even like the Carrier factory that's over here, that were in our neighborhoods. And there weren't any environmental protections, or people just looked the other way. So you have what's called VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, that gather in the soil, but they're like gas. It's like gas. So you have your groundwater, and then you have these chemicals. So you
have a groundwater at the bottom. And then above that you have
the chemicals that are coming down, and it's been impacting the groundwater. So in 2013, Citizens Gas, or Citizens Energy, notified the state that they had found some contamination in their groundwater. One of the well fields, in one of the wells in the Riverside well field, right over here off of 16th and White River. Okay. So, and because of the Clean Water Act, something had to be done. They have to do something. Lead or air pollution is a little different, but water is serious. And then this also is on the hills of Flint. Right. So the state sent a letter to EPA asking that this entire area be deemed a Superfund site for the cleanup, because of the fact that you had
Mm-hmm.
over 200 suspected sources of contamination.
Okay, so slow down. Let's get, because let's think about the average person who's hearing this in their brains. They're trying to process it. So, how did we get from one well with Citizens Energy to 200 sites? How do we get to that level of interest that impacting our soil?
Around this area, there were a lot of different types of businesses that basically polluted the ground. Mm-hmm. So you can remember back in the day, somebody would have a car mechanic shop in back of their house.
Right.
So what did they do with the chemicals? They would just dump them in the ground. Right. So we have over 200 suspected sources.
Okay, there is my point. There's suspected sources. So at some point, somebody did some type of assessment to determine where there used to be a dry cleaners right here, and there used to be a shade tree mechanic right here, or there used to be a paint store right here. Who did that?
The state did that. They used GIS mapping. And it's actually what's called an environmental study. Okay. So you have like phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 is basically doing this historical research.
Gotcha.
And also, it's been known for years that the MLK corridor was contaminated with lead and various things. And that has affected, as you know, the investment on MLK because there's brown fields that are there, but this is just a little bit different. Okay. And so what happens is those vapors, they move, they're not static, and then the groundwater moves as well. So these vapors have commingled into a plume, a huge plume that's closer to 30th and Harding, kind of closer in that area, but it's huge. That is suspected, and I'm quoting, is suspected to be the major source. But you have these other sites that have to be cleaned up in addition to that huge commingled plume. So what happened was citizens had to shut down one of the wells because of the water. It's 20% groundwater, 80% surface water, and then they use chemicals to clean it, and that's what comes out of your faucet. So I can say that I have confidence in Citizens Energy in terms of the water. If there's a problem, they'll deal with it immediately. I have 100% confidence in that.
So how does the citizens piece, how is it impacted by this EPA letter for us to be designated as that category that you mentioned?
Well, initially, Citizens was supportive of the state's letter or request that EPA place the entire area, what is called the NPL list, which is a non-performing list. That's what it's called, NPL list. This entire area to be considered to be a Superfund site, but the problem is that it's water. So the likelihood that this area would have been called a Superfund site was high. And then what happened is that I don't know if you're familiar with 16 Tech, but they were ready to start digging. Once this happened, everything stopped with 16 Tech, and the city has already invested millions of dollars in infrastructure to get ready for this project. So that's a huge deal. But a bigger deal is that the Riverside neighborhood, those residents have been working for a long time to uplift their area, and they're there. So if Riverside neighborhood is going to be deemed a Superfund site, what does that mean for the area? That means that there will not be any new investment It means that the residents that have been there forever, they will see a plunge in their housing values. It also means that the citizens have to carry the stigma around. And so that was a consideration. And there was a resident, Peggy Gamblin, who was the president of the Riverside Civic League. She decided to call a task force consisting of interested residents to determine, should we go with a Superfund cleanup, or should we go with this new alternative that the city, 16 Tech, and citizens had banded together to promote? So for 6 weeks, we met weekly. We spoke with different experts. We got a lot of different points of view on what's the best way to go. And so what we decided is that if the cleanup, if the local authorities, IDEM, if we would allow them to take control of the cleanup, we would need certain guarantees. And, of course, this is what these institutional members wanted. Otherwise, again, 16 Tech wouldn't happen, and then we have the Superfund issue. So included in those were protections for residents in terms of that
values of properties and things like that.
Well, no, not having to bear the entire cost of a cleanup if that is found on their property. Because again, back in the day, even dry cleaners were next door to homes. So dry cleaners are one of the largest sources of contamination. So it creeps. So a private property owner would be responsible for the cost of that cleanup and vapor, and the cleanup mainly is vapors. So it's like venting to the air. You have to get a special venting system, and you vent these vapors out. But that can run into thousands of dollars. So we got that guarantee. We also got a guarantee that the priority on the cleanup would be residential and not institutional. So a lot of are public property. So a lot of these properties also are owned by the city, or they're owned by IUPUI or IU Health. So those properties, in a normal cleanup, what happens is the biggest
institution?
Well, I really wanted to say the person with the biggest juice would get the most attention. So we demanded that the individual residents, that the priority would first go to make sure that their properties are safe. We also asked for free testing of water and soil. So we were able to get that as well. We asked for mapping, so we would know exactly what the progress of the cleanup was, where you could basically go and click on a spot, and then you would know what's going on with that area. So transparency. We asked for mailings instead of just communicating through email or advertisements, because again, we have a lot of people in the neighborhood who may not be online. And we also asked for them to support development of this community task force that I'm here representing now. And the mission of the task force is to make sure that the residents, their interests are number one. That's the priority. And also the liaison with IDEM as well, because what could happen is that you get information, but the information is not clear, it's not concise. So sometimes there's a different definition of that. So the task force will ensure that the entire community knows exactly what's going on with this cleanup.
Now, I've received information periodically about this, not really understanding, I guess for me, as someone who has an interest in this community, I needed some sort of translation to understand what I was even reading, because I was reading a lot that had a lot to do with a lot. And there was timelines in there that I wasn't at the beginning of. So I'm kind of in the middle, kind of going, So what does this task force, or what can bring people up to speed, not only with the timelines and the transparency and the tools, but also the terminology, and you know what I mean? What is out there to really, like, if I moved into this community today, who's going to bring me up to speed, and how am I going to learn about where we are in this process in the language?
Well, we're in the process of reaching out to individual neighborhood associations and groups and churches. Kind of the opinion that more one-to-one personal outreach is more effective than having big billboards or leaving flyers, because people would say, "Who are you?" So this has been the initial outreach. Has really been one-to-one or one to a group. The next phase is launching a website that residents can go to, but a very simple website, not anything fancy or intimidating, but just some place where people can go and get the latest information. And then after the website, the next step is to do more community outreach, like I'm doing here with the podcast. So, and even radio, television, that kind of thing. So we're looking at 3 or 4 different ways to engage everyone, because we have a lot of elderly. If Amos was still with us, we could say we would give it to Amos and they would know. But we don't have that anymore. But these people go to church. They attend their neighborhood association meetings. So this is a way to reach out to them. Whereas younger people, you just give them a website. You can go check this out.
Okay. All right. So is there anything else that we need to know about what's coming up that people need to be aware of?
Rumors.
Okay, what does that mean? Because okay, let's get into that conversation. I wasn't gonna go there, but you're trying to drag me in that place. I can only assume that I'm assuming that the difference between the Superfund area designation and the 16 Tech citizens, there's a line in between those two. And then I can assume that those two sides of that line may have a different agenda. I can only assume. And in that, I can only assume that there are people who win and lose on either side, depending on where you're standing and what you're looking at, that can cause people to sort of posture and pontificate. So, can you share with us what people need to be aware of as they look at these two sides of the same coin?
That it's not a zero-sum game.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe if Hillary had won the election, then maybe the Superfund option may still have some play into this, but
so you're saying people are nervous about designating something and then being left halfway.
That, and also there's not a lot of trust in IDEM in any of our state instances.
Say what that do you know what that acronym stands for?
Oh, it's Indiana Department of Environmental Management.
Okay.
But there's not a lot of trust in IDEM, and also there's not a lot of trust in our governmental agencies. And historically, many times these entities have not had our best interests at heart. And when I say our best interest, I'm talking about the black community, especially here in Indiana. So there's still, everyone still hasn't bought in that going with this local option is a better option than going with the federal government with the Superfund designation. But I believe that that's because they don't understand the difference. So if you have Superfund, it's ran out of Chicago. You don't have a lot of leeway in terms of doing any kind of negotiating like we were able to do with these local people. They also look for the largest polluter because they're trying to actually recoup their costs. So a lot of the smaller owners, you're left on your own. And also another important fact that I want to bring out is that all of downtown Indianapolis more or less has its challenges when it comes to pollution and contamination, be it water, be it air, be it soil. And that's historically because the way the city developed, where you had manufacturing businesses and in communities, and then they closed up and they just left their factories.
And they just started building houses right on top of the site.
Right on top of the site. But on the east side, on the near east side, which is
Irvington?
No, I'm talking Lockerbie. I'm talking Chatham Arch, Old North Side. That's really near. Yeah, these, but they're old neighborhoods. A lot of them predate the Civil War, but they have their challenges. They have challenges with vapors, with lead poisoning in their soil, with air pollution from the highway. But you never hear about, we need to put this stigma on this side, on our neighborhood, to get it cleaned up. Let's make this a Superfund site. You don't hear that. A couple of weeks ago on television, I saw an interview with a young couple that just bought a house over there, and they found out that their soil was lead, had lead in it. That's going to be handled quietly because of the property values. The people over there are really concerned with their property values.
So are you suggesting that this in certain parts of town is being whispered or kept quiet to protect the escalating property values?
I'm saying that that's a factor. That's a factor. Whereas on the west side, also the west side has a large percentage of black people on the west side. But the secret's out of how great it is on the west side. So now we're experiencing gentrification, and the neighborhood that I lived in that I grew up in is basically gentrified. We're like a footnote now, and it's moving north. So if you designate this area as Superfund site, you do the cleanup, property values will shoot up. Well, what does that mean? That the people who have been here forever will be pushed out. Right. So this task force and this option, this is an opportunity not only to get the cleanup, but also to ensure that we control what happens in our neighborhood in terms of the population, in terms of community. There's opportunity here. So that's really what's the most important thing about this local option. And people who talk about, we should have gone with Superfund. I think part of that is just not trusting the state, and also part of it is that we don't communicate as well as we should. So once somebody whispers something, it becomes fact. So my mission is to make sure that all the information is factual, right, and complete.
All right. So obviously you come here and you're sharing some what I would consider to be fairly straightforward information about something that a lot of people just aren't familiar with. What has been some of the barriers to getting this information to people? I mean, what would you consider maybe the top 2 challenges to getting this word out?
Financial support, because it costs money to communicate. And the second barrier has been the trust level again. I'm persistent. So it took months for me, a particular neighborhood I really don't want to say, but the person told me she was reading my emails, but she would just delete them because she didn't know who I was. But once she found out we had a common friend and we had a friend in common, that trust level was there. So I was allowed to come and address the meeting, and it was, people told me that they really appreciate it. So it's really a trust level. I think it's prudent to be suspicious when it comes to people,
communities like this.
Yeah, because we have so many people who prey on you. So that's been the main 2 inhibitors.
So what are we doing to overcome the financial issue?
IDEM has agreed to finance a technical assistance grant, and it's basically modeled on a technical assistance grant that Superfund sites are allowed to apply for. And they've agreed to basically model this grant, so it will be over a 2-year period. It's a one-time grant, and the task force would be able to use this to hire a technical consultant to be able to translate a lot of the technical information, and also drive the cleanup a bit about what areas have priority, and communicate and hold meetings. IDEM has said that they would hold quarterly meetings, but they're outsiders again. So the task force would like to be able to have personal one-on-one meetings when, if people have an issue, they can come and speak to it in a form that they feel safe in.
Gotcha. Now that's for 2 years. How long is it suspect this is going to take for this process to really be done and done right?
10 to 15 years. It's a long-term project.
So what is obviously I'm doing the math, and I'm not a math expert, but 2 and 10 to 15 is a gap there. So what do you do year 3? Is it a matter of getting going, and this person also is about grant writing and all the other, knocking on doors and $5 here and there? I mean, what do you do post 2 years?
You hit it right on the nail. Initially, once the formal organizational structure has been realized, then the fundraising can begin in terms of grant writing, in terms of could be creative, could find other ways to raise money or get in-kind support.
So that person really is day one. That person is coming in online to really begin the process of figuring out how they're going to fund staying online. So day one of that 2-year grant, they're working on year 3.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes, basically, yes. Okay. Yes. And but one fortunate thing is that because it's community-based, we have access to community talent. We have access to meeting space that we may not have to pay for. A lot of times those administrative expenses will eat up your budget.
Right.
So we're looking to just kind of be creative. And also we'll ask the institutional members like 16 Tech, like Citizens, like the city of Indianapolis, like IUPUI, like LIST, to also step up and support the task force as well.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, how involved are those two questions? I'm sorry. How involved are those entities in the task force presently? And is there any concern on their part with regard to the two sides of the fence, i.e. the Superfund versus the local tracks to getting this done? How are they on their involvement presently? And are any of these historical institutions sort of looking at these two options maybe more skeptically than... Hold on. Yeah. Is that making sense, my question?
No, it's making sense.
Well, let's start with the first one. How involved are these institutions presently with the task force?
All the institutions except for for IUPUI and LIST are heavily involved.
Why are they not?
They haven't really been approached or asked to be involved. So
that's fair.
I don't want to say that.
That's fair.
Because I'm assuming that once the task force gets going, that they will want to support it. But so far, we've spoken to and gotten support from Citizens. We've spoken to 16 Tech. We've also spoken with the city, and the city has said whatever you need. If we can do it, we'll do that for you. The neighborhood liaisons have been involved as well. So, and this has been from the beginning.
Now, beginning meaning 2015,
when Peggy initiated this task force.
Okay. So the change in administration, did it help, hurt, or didn't make a difference?
Well, it happened right after the change in administration, so we didn't have to deal with the previous administration. It's been Hogshead's team.
Okay, we're going to leave that right alone, right there. Right there, we're going to leave it alone. Okay, so let's shift to my next question. Are any of these institutions sort of leery of these two different sides or one side over the other? Because there's some people that relationally could have vested interest in one side or the other and try to push an agenda through because of their influence. Do we have any of that, or is everybody sort of, kumbaya?
No, right now everybody's kumbaya, and that's partially because of the fact that not wanting the area to be designated as a Superfund site. I think that going forward, the biggest risk is the community not understanding the process, because EPA still has final oversight.
Okay.
So you could have people calling, complaining, not really having all the information, but they're still complaining, or they have their own agendas that will try to derail this or slow it down. So, and that's also one of the missions of the task force, is again to be
kind of control that.
Well, not only control it, but it's not really control, but to just make sure that the information is factual.
Okay.
Because I'm sure IDEM will make a mistake. The people there are great. They're competent, but it's a politically run, directed organization. And then people are human.
Right.
So we all make mistakes, but you need somebody there to be able to just state the facts.
Okay. Yeah, and when I think about what it is that you all are talking about, facts are important, right? Feelings, love everybody, but facts are important, and which it's so easy for people to misrepresent the truth, run with that. And then, if depending on their level, and that part of that's Indianapolis too, but I get it. Is there anything? I think we're going to go ahead and close out here. I know you got a laundry list there that I keep seeing you looking at. So, is there anything else that you want to share from your laundry list? that y'all got to know, she and I have seen each other in so many different contexts. This is really our first time to really talk in depth about anything. And I just want to make sure you're able to get, because I know you're going to share this podcast around, because again, you might as well. It would keep you from having to do this 15 times. You can just share this information. So I want to make sure you get out everything that you need to get out about this issue. Is there anything else?
Well, I just would like to give you a little background about myself. I grew up on the near West Side. I grew up in the neighborhood that's called Ransom Place today, but it used to be the near Northwest Side. It's the oldest black community in the city. Mm-hmm. It dates back to 1865. Mm-hmm. But we're a case study in urban renewal schemes, a case study in your own community not valuing yourself, a case study in greed. So when I look at this area up here in the northwest side of town, I see so much potential. Right. I'm a graduate of Northwest High School. I went to high school with a lot of people that grew up in this area. I'm very familiar with this area. And there's a lot of history here. Mm-hmm. It's important that we value that as a community. And the first thing is a clean environment. That's the root. And a lot of times when you say clean environment, people think, oh, trash. Trash is important, but it's also to make sure that the water is safe to drink, that your grass or your soil is safe for your kids to run in, that your mother's not living in a home where poison gas is coming up and killing her or causing
chronic diseases,
especially COPD. We have a high instance of that in our community. So my motivation really is it comes from having love for my people and respect for my elders, and understanding that somebody has to make sure that the information that's disseminated is factual. And I just want to state that. And the last thing that I want to state is that this task force and my mission is to create some love among us all, to collaborate, to be respectful, to make sure that everybody is taken care of and looked out for, and so that we can protect our community, because otherwise this community will look like my community does now, where I look around and sometimes I'm just like, wow.
Yeah. And you're right. That's a concern, and it comes up a lot. But then the next question is what can we do to ensure that love is there, that hope is there, and I like your word, that value for self and the community and context and culture and history is there, because it's not just for us, it's for our children. And if we don't leave anything for them, it's not their fault. It's ours, right?
And we have to also respect our seniors, the people who may be living off of $1,200 a month, but they own their homes, but they worked for pennies to make sure that we could go out and compete,
go to college.
I have 2 degrees. I have a bachelor's in finance and I have a master's in development policy and planning. My mom worked for pennies. Yeah. You have to respect that, and I'm not unique. I'm not unique. There's thousands of people in this community that came up with the same kind of values and the same roots, but we need to value our seniors. Yeah. So that's very important to me.
Well, I appreciate you, and I hope you feel the love from the Epicenter, because we certainly love you, and we love our community, and we love those who are about progress and not, hating on one another.
No.
And I think that it starts with love, but it continues with communication. They say you tell folk you love them at least once a day, right? And so every time we do a podcast, this is us trying to tell our community that we love them because we're talking to them. We're sharing information, So, all right, that's all we're going to have for today on this. But just know you're always welcome to call Pastor G and say, hey, man, is there any way I can come do another podcast? We can share around about another topic. You see how easy this is to do. This is so easy. It's ridiculous. But just holler and we can make something happen. How's that sound?
Thank you so much, Pastor G. I really appreciate it. It's been great. It's been great.
All right, y'all. This is Pastor G, Forward Podcast, signing off. And God bless. We'll see y'all later. Peace.